Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinod. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Radhe Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Bhaktivinod, Jai Bhaktivinod, Jai Bhaktivinod. Jaya Bhaktivinod, Jaya Bhaktivinod. Jaya Gadadhara, Gadadhara, Jaya Gadadhara. Hare Bo, Hare Bo, Hare Bo, Hare Bo. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Gaura Bhaktivinod, Jaya Gaura Bhaktivinod, Gaura Bhaktivinod, Jaya Gaura Bhaktivinod. Okay, well today is a very, very auspicious day. Might not have heard about it, but it is the disappearance of Bhaktivinod Thakur, so we'll speak a little bit about him today also. And it's also the disappearance day of Sri Gadadhara Pandit. Can anyone in the room tell me who Gadadhara Pandit is and why is he important? Nobody knows who Sri Gadadhara is? He is part of the Panchatattva. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita, Gadadhara, Sivasari, Gaur Bhaktivinod. He's the energy of a devotee. He's actually Srimati Radharani, present in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes to help Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fully understand the love and devotion and Mahabhava to Sri Krishna himself. Lord Chaitanya appeared just for that reason, and Gadadhara was one of the great personalities that made that happen. Okay, so first, let's talk about the devotees. That would be Bhaktivinod Thakur. Now, okay, good. There we are. So Bhaktivinod Thakur, anybody know who Bhaktivinod Thakur is in the room? We didn't do well with the Panchatattva, even though we chanted every day. Okay, good enough. That would be him, right there, the second spiritual master on the wall there. Fourth spiritual master before Srila Prabhupada. Well, I don't like to, unpurify the microphone because I don't know anybody cleans it here. So, all right, whatever. I prefer being not responsible for other people getting sick when I can. Bhaktivinod Thakur was extremely important. He appeared right around 350 years after the time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he was intimately responsible for the resurgence of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. At the time that he took birth, the Sampradaya was basically a mess. There were so many deviant philosophical groups present. Vrindavan was almost forgotten. The area around Govardhan Hill was so full of dacoits. If you dared to do parikrama, you would be at minimum robbed and beat up and or killed just trying to do Govardhan parikrama. And he was personally responsible as a magistrate of clearing up and running the dacoits off of the area around Govardhan Hill. He had a big job ahead of him. Just to clean up things philosophically and to reestablish a proper Gaudiya Sampradaya, he preached vigorously. Now, he didn't do so much in his earlier life in that direction. He was a student. After a student, he was a grihastha, had 11 children, several of which were great Gaudiya Vaishnavas, particularly Bhima Prasad, who became Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master. Right? But more important than that is that he began writing books to cement the tenets of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to the masses. It's described that at one point in his life, he was a Christian, right? But why was he a Christian? There wasn't enough in the Vedic system to satisfy his devotional aspects? Yes or no? Huh? Right. Very responsive group. I get so many answers. So much for the idea of engaging everyone in a talk. Actually, what he did learn the Bible, he did learn the theosophy of the Christian religion and etc. He did regularly go to that. But what did he do with that? Why would such an acharya I mean, he actually is Kamala Manjari, who serves Sri Rupa Manjari, who serves Vishaka Devi, right? Radharani's consort. And the Manjaris are special personalities. They're generally 8 to 12 years old, and they serve the older gopis who were Krishna's age, 15, 16, like that, diligently. Bhaktivinod Thakur said that he was in Vrindavan when he was there, prior to coming here. His service was to grind chandan. So he'd put camphor and sandalwood, black and saffron, and he would grind lots and lots of chandan every day to be offered. She would give it to Vishaka, and she would, or Lalita, and they would anoint the bodies of Radha and Krishna with that sandalwood oil. And he said that pleasure was sufficient, because then it allowed him to, at least some of the time, when the divine couple would walk by at a bit of a distance while he's grinding his chandan, he could take darshan from a distance, and it was satisfying sufficiently for his heart. Right? But what he did, if you actually read the life and precepts of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he used a lot of Christian terminology and then sent that out throughout the world, like universal love and peace and benefacting the other people of the world, the people we share everything with. So he wrote it with targeting a Christian mind, and therefore he sent it out all over the world. McGill University, he sent it to several places in the U.S., England, and it was well received, because at that point the British had pretty much destroyed anyone's capacity to accept and understand anything in the Indian-based philosophy. Max Mueller, famous German translator, who purposely led people away from that, saying all these gods, all this and that. He's a very big Mayavadi man, but practically speaking, he's a demon the way he denigrated the actual tenets of our philosophy. So it was Bhaktivinod Thakur that pulled it back out of the river and gave it to the world. And he wrote many other books. He wrote, he's mostly famous for several things. One is Gitavali and Saranagati, which are songs about our philosophy that could be sung in simple Bengali, and therefore more and more people would appreciate and understand what is our philosophy. Everybody likes to sing and dance, huh? Right? You hear the drums playing, the cartels banging around, and everybody moving. Everybody just walks into the room and starts moving too. It's natural. I have grandchildren. You can watch them dance when you chant. It's so amazing. It's just automatic. They don't think about it. You know, they just start dancing. And almost everyone that comes in the temple, we're having kirtan, they immediately start dancing with the devotees, unless they're in slow motion, which makes it a little harder. But generally, kirtan has a pace of about 60 to 80 beats per minute. So, you know, it's almost like a march, so to speak. You know, so you automatically get involved in the kirtan and the rhythm and the swing of things. So Bhaktivinod Thakur was brilliant in his preaching. He resurrected the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, defeated all those. There was one famous Swami who called himself God, and people were complaining that the gentlemen would come in the area. They would come to him and say, look, this guy's out there preaching that he's God and he's this and that and he's doing all these other things. And he was a very powerful yogi. So Bhaktivinod Thakur immediately had him arrested. Well, not immediately, actually. He had to go through all the ranks of the magistrates under him before he realized none of them were going to touch this guy, because he's got mystical potencies. So he went personally and arrested him and threw him in jail. Immediately his entire family, practically speaking, got sick, deathly sick. And every day his wife would say, Prabhu, let him go, we are dying. They were very, very sick. This Bhagavan, he's cursed thy family. All of your children are going to die. This is going to be horrible. Just release him. He said, I will not. Because he was planning on this. The false Bhagavan was planning on this. He had these kind of powers. And all the way through his incarceration until his conviction. Can you imagine being convicted of not being God? and posing yourself as an imposter, being God? You could get arrested for that in Bengal. In around 1870s or so, 60s and 70s, that period of time, you could get arrested for misrepresenting that you were actually God. What a nice idea, right? In America, everybody thinks they're God because we're all individuals and we can take care of ourselves. We don't need no stinking God to run our lives. We got President Trump. Former President Trump, sorry. We're going to follow him right to hell. To wherever they go. There's a special place. They had to make a new neighborhood, MAGA neighborhood. Almost sounds Vedic, right? Yeah, so when he convicted him, because, yogis and sadhus in those days didn't do anything with their hair. They let it grow matted and all, so he had all this matted hair. And Bhaktivinod Thakur figured that's where he keeps his power. He hides it there so that he can't, he won't lose it. So Bhaktivinod Thakur ordered that the jailers shave his head before we send him to prison. Nobody would do it. They're still afraid. They saw what was happening in Bhaktivinod Thakur's family. So Bhaktivinod Thakur himself personally shaved this yogi's hair off. And at that point, he lost his tejas, his energy, his power. And his family immediately became well. And then they threw him in jail for some time. But he was completely disgraced. Therefore, he would be no threat at a later time when they let him out. So powerful as a devotee. He, after his learning about the Christians and etc., then he also found people would criticize him because he would also preach very strongly Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy, the Vedic philosophy, and etc., for many, many years. But they would ask, why are you not wearing tilak? You're obviously a Vaishnava. Why are you not wearing tilak? He said, because I have not had Vaishnava initiation. And then one guru came forward who he took shelter of. And therefore he started wearing the Kantimala. Just so you know, this is actually traditional in the Gaudiya Vaishnava system. That we wear Kantimala and we do our tilak on the forehead, the throat, the chest, the stomach, both sides, on our arms and on our back. Why do we do that? Because we actually should know, that our body is simply a vessel for engaging in the service of Krishna. Therefore we mark it as a temple for God, because the super soul, Paramatma, lives within the heart of every single living entity. It is only human beings can recognize themselves as Vaishnavas, seeking the pure devotional service that Lord Chaitanya came to present. This is entirely Lord Chaitanya's mission. Over and above everything else is that we become servants of Krishna. I take some pain medicines. Bogs my head a little bit. Jivara Swarupai Krishnara Nityadas. Our eternal position is we are servants of Krishna. And therefore we dutifully serve Krishna in whatever way we can. In this day and age, as Lord Chaitanya presented, the method of chanting the holy name of Krishna is all that is required. And as easy as that seems, well, I could chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. But can you do it with full attention? First thing I noticed is that Nainamrita went into ecstasy and his body started shaking. As soon as I said Hare Krishna, he doesn't even know. That was a sign of ecstasy. That's how we are in this age. If we get anything right, it's basically by luck or by the mercy of some Vaishnava that we get anywhere. And it is Bhaktivinod Thakur that spread this idea that distribution of books throughout the world is the only way and the most secure and satisfying way to spread Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. And that everyone and everywhere the holy name of Krishna will be chanted. Very, very important. He also gave us one of his sons, Vimala Prasad, who later became Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. Phenomenal devotee. Him and his father were very, very intimately connected, and they would go around preaching and going to the expositions, sadhu sanghas and things like that, and present the philosophy. One time, Bhaktivinod Thakur was sick and wasn't able to come, so he sent 12-year-old Bhakti Siddhanta there to represent the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, and in doing so, he totally and completely smashed everyone's idea separate from his. He was, just to add what a great soul he was Slutidara. Everything he heard and read, he could repeat. He learned to speak English by reading a dictionary. Imagine that. Just imagine to learn a language by learning each word in that language that he could. And then he would talk in such eloquent ways. If you read the translations of the Brahma Samhita that he left us, you'll realize, and even Prabhupada said, I could, I'd keep reading it, but understanding the Brahma Samhita was so difficult because he used such specific and precise language. So, Bhaktivinod Thakur ki jai. Anyone like to add something to that? Get ready with the microphone, Vishal. Are there pastimes that strike you? And just as a little footnote there, Bhaktivinod Thakur began distributing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message in English on the very year that Srila Prabhupada was born, 1896. That year was the year that Bhaktivinod Thakur began spreading this news of Lord Chaitanya throughout the world. Sabha, you can add something, please?
Just that he went through various tragedies, like his village, there was a plague, and he was switched by the British, where his job as a magistrate, he went to many different places, but he had great determination, and it was very important that when he finally got a copy of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, which was not easily available, but that was a very significant event in his life, and his upbringing was not a vice. There was some Shakta influences, but he persevered and found the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu the highest.
Right, thank you. So now we'll move on to Sri Gadadhara Pandit. It is his disappearance day today. And again, he's one of the Panchatattvas, so I want to read a few verses glorifying the Panchatattva Mahamantra, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhara, Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinod, because it's very important also. So beginning at chapter 3, verse number 2 in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Jai Jai Mahaprabhu Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Tanhara Charana Srita Se Vadhadhyana. Let me offer glorification to the Supreme Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one who has taken shelter of his lotus feet is the most fortunate and glorified person. Purport. Prabhu means master, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the supreme master of all masters. Therefore he is called Mahaprabhu. Any person who takes shelter of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is most glorified, because by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu he is able to get promotion to the platform of loving service to the Lord, which is transcendental to salvation. It's not simply liberation. Then text 3. Purve Guruvadi Chaya Tattva Kaila Namaskara Guru Tattva Kahi Yachi Ebi Prachera Vacha. In the beginning I have discussed the truth about the spiritual master. Now we'll try to explain the Panchatattva. The truth about the spiritual master is, as far as you're concerned, he is God. He is fully the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, considered in the same level of glorification and worship by the disciple. In the beginning, okay. So, then for text 4. Panchatattva avartyana chaitanyara sanghe Panchatattva lana karena sankirtana range. These 5 tattvas incarnate with Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and thus the Lord executes his Sankirtan movement with great pleasure. Purport. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's the following statement regarding Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Krishna Varam Tisa Krishna Sango Pangasta Parasadam Yagyai Sankirtana Prayar Yajantihi Sumeda Saha. In the age of Kali, people who are endowed with sufficient intelligence will worship the Lord, who is accompanied by his associates by performance of Sankirtan Yajna. 11.5.32. Nice purport there when we get to it. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is always accompanied by his plenary expansion, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, his incarnation, Sri Advaita Prabhu, his internal potency, Sri Gadadhara Prabhu, and his marginal potency, Shivas Prabhu. He is in the midst of them as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should know that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is always accompanied by these other tattvas. Therefore, our obeisances to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are complete when we say Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinod. As preachers of the Krishna consciousness movement, we first offer our obeisances to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by chanting this Panchatattva mantra. Then we say, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. There are 10 offenses in the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, but these are not considered in the chanting of the Panchatattva mantra. Namely, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhara, Shivasari, Gaura Bhaktivinod. And just for the record, he also quotes the full Panchatattva mantra 2 more times in a 2-paragraph purport. How important do you think that is, if he's writing out the entire mantra 4 times in a 2-paragraph purport? The most magnanimous. And so Mahaprabhu is known as Mahapadanyaya Avatara, the most magnanimous incarnation, for he does not consider the offenses of the fallen souls. Thus, to derive the full benefit of chanting the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, we must first take shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then, learn the Panchatattva mantra, and then chant the Hare Krishna mantra. That will be very effective. Taking advantage of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there are many unscrupulous devotees who manufacture a Maha Mantra of their own. Sometimes they sing Bhaja Nitai Gaura Radhe Sham Hare Krishna Hare Ram, Or Shri Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Hare Krishna Hare Rama Shri Radhe Govinda. You hear this a lot in India. Particularly Orissa, if you go to Haridas Thakur's Samadhi there on the beach in Jagannath Puri, the devotees go there and sing Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And the Pandits after a while will say, will you please chant our Maha Mantra? And we never do. Shri Krishna Chaitanya, we just don't do it. They don't mind because the chanting of Hare Krishna is nice, but they know we stick with what we do. We don't manufacture mantras. Prabhupada was very, very, very strong about not manufacturing mantras. And even several mantras were there that Prabhupada said, don't chant these because the Mayavadis chant them also. And we do not want to be placed in the same category as the Mayavadis because we definitely are not Mayavadis. Okay? So, taking advantage of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Actually, however, one should chant the names of the full Panchatattva, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhara, Shivasari, Gaura Bhaktivinod, and then the 16 words, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. But these unscrupulous, less intelligent men confuse the entire process. Of course, since they are also devotees, they can express their feelings in that way. But the method prescribed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pure devotees, specifically Krishnadas Kaviraj, who wrote the Chaitanya Charitamrita, to chant first the full Panchatattva mantra, and then chant the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Uh-oh, my bookmarks fell out. Just 1 second. There we go. So also in the chapter 10, and as Lord Chaitanya, as Krishnadas Kaviraj goes a little further, Jai Shri Shri Radha, he starts describing the tree of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in that, of course, is Sri Gadadhara Pandit. He's actually on two places. He's both in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's branch and Nityananda Prabhu's branch. Because it was Gadadhara, Sriba, and others that also accompanied Sri Nityananda Prabhu when he was ordered to go to Bengal and stay there and preach the chanting of the holy names in Calcutta and up there and all around Bengal. So Gadadhara Pandit was one of the ones that went with him. He was also very famous at another time when he became older. He came back to Jagannath Puri and worshipped Tota Gopinath. And he took Kshetra Sannyas at that time, saying that he would never leave the service of the deity. However, when Lord Chaitanya wanted to go to Vrindavan, he was also in the group that wanted to go with him. This was the first attempt. The Lord never made it past Bengal in this time. But he also wanted to go. So Lord Chaitanya says, no, you've taken Kshetra Sannyas. He said, to hell with this Kshetra Sannyas. I am going with you. I can never leave your side. I have to be in your association. But Lord Chaitanya worked out a compromise with him, and he stayed at the Tota Gopinath temple. He stayed there so long that gradually he became so old he could no longer, you've been there, Tota Gopinath is almost the size of Radhanila Madhava, probably standing up, but he's sitting down. And he's sitting down because at a certain point, Gadadhara Pandit would not quite reach up to put the garland over the Lord's head, so he simply stopped. And Tora Gopinath came to him in a dream one night and says, "Why do you don't offer me a garland anymore? So many years you've served me, so now no garland?" He said, "I can't reach high enough to place the garland. I am in such a pitiful condition." And the Lord, Tora Gopinath said, "Oh, don't let that worry you. Tomorrow you bring a garland." So that he went there to wake the deities. They're sitting down. So he could very easily garland him for the rest of his life. The Lord reciprocates with his pure devotees. And Sri Gadadhara is not just a pure devotee. He's actually the energy of Sri Krishna, which is the Ladini Shakti, which is Srimati Radharani. Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself, who advents for the primary purpose of experiencing pure devotional service in the mood of Mahabhav, the mood of Radharani. And it is Gadadhara Pandit that guides him in that exhibition of pure loving devotional service, not just devotional service, pure loving devotional service, in that mood of full self-surrender where one does not know if he's conscious or part of this world or in Vrindavan with Radha and Krishna. That Mahabhava stage is not surpassed in anyone but Radharani. Others have it, sure, but only Radharani exhibits it at his highest level. And there's a verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Mahabhava, Sarupa, the embodiment of Mahabhav. Siddhartha Thakurani, Sarvagunakani Krishna, Kanta Shiromani. That not only is she the repository of Mahabhav, she is also encompassed with all good qualities, and she is the crest jewel of all the lovely jewels of Krishna consorts. So she's at a special place, only her. And Krishna was thinking, how can I experience that? So he came as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and brought the entire Panchatattva with him. His incarnation, Advaitacharya, his expansion, Nityananda Prabhu, the Ladini Shakti energy of the Lord, Gadadhara, right? And then the devotee, the pure devotee, Srivas Thakur. Okay, so Sri Gadadhara Das, the 23rd branch, was understood to be the topmost, for he induced all the Mohammedan Qazis to chant the holy name of Lord Hari. Purport. About 8 or 10 miles from Calcutta, on the banks of the Ganges, is a village known as Indiyadadaha Gram. Srila Gadadhara Das was known as an inhabitant of this village. The Bhakti Ratnakara, 7th chapter, informs us that after the disappearance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Gadadhara Das came from Navadvip to Katwa. Thereafter he came to Adiyadaha and resided there. He is stated to be the luster of the body of Radharani, just as Srila Gadadhara Pandit Goswami was an incarnation of Srimati Radharani. Oh, I got the wrong verse, sorry. I was doing all this research early in the morning before I did my puja. So that's a different personality. So Gadadhara Pandit was actually the energy of Srimati Radharani, the Ladini Shakti. Sorry about that. I just picked out the places that they were there. But he was very specifically Lord Chaitanya's intimate associate to help him realize that and to understand the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Ancha-lila particularly. There's a chapter called The Madness of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was so displaced from this planet, from his circumstances living within Jagannath Puri, that he would do things like one day just outside of the Tota Gopinath temple, Lord Chaitanya saw a sand dune. And the sand dunes there at Puri are quite big. They're not like they are at Galveston. I took my son down there when he was 5, and he was so impressed that there were mountains on the beach there. Because everything from here to Alabama, which is as far as he'd ever seen in the world, was flat. So he thought, wow, these are mountains. I can climb them. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw this mountain, this sand dune, and he thought of it as Govardhan Hill, and immediately ran across it. He fell into the Ganges River, the Jamuna River. He fell into the Jamuna River right there at Puri, at the ocean, and drifted all the way to Connaught, which is about 12 miles north. Very strong current there, so in the course of an evening, he managed to get 12 miles up the beach, completely unconscious in love of Krishna. Radharani was like that also. When we read in the 10th canto of the Bhagavad, the Bhuma Lila, Radharani begins talking to a bumblebee, and she goes through so many exciting pieces of conversation and moods, all of which are based in uncontrollable anger and anxiety. It's it's actually the specifically most esoteric part of the Bhagavatam. And learning about Krishna is just how out of touch with their material circumstances the devotees can be. And this is what Gadadhara was there for in the Panchatattva, to help Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu engage in his ecstasy in full, unadulterated bhakti, which is, by anyone else's estimation, madness. In the Bhagavatam, when it's described Radharani's mood, when Uddhava came back, and he looked so much like Krishna, the gopis mistook him for Krishna, which is how Radharani became so angry when she realized it wasn't Krishna. She began talking to Krishna's messenger in the form of a bumblebee, Madhu. Not some easy platform to get at. And it's so advanced that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's purport to that verse simply lists her expressions as anger in the mood of, or love in the mood of, love in the mood of this, love in the mood of that, without really touching it. He doesn't try to explain it, he just lists it. There's one other part that he does that in also, which is when Krishna married the queens from Bhaumasura, when he went and defeated Bhaumasura. Reason being is that what happened there was that when Krishna married all the princesses who were obviously, defiled, you could say, just by being in the presence of Bhaumasura. He stole them all away. So they were considered unmarriable, and they said, we only have your shelter, you have to get marry us. So he did. He arranged a marriage with 16,100 wives at one time. And what really happened there, as explained in the purport by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur there also, is that every single person that was invited to the wedding went to all 16,100 weddings. And this is also a case where Vishwanath Chakravarti said, this is beyond logic, but it is how Krishna exhibits himself as God. that everybody in Dwarka went to all of those weddings simultaneously. You're not going to ever adjust your mental composure to figure how that works. And it's not that they thought they were at 16,100 weddings, they simply thought they were at each one individually. It never connected that they were actually at all of those weddings. But whenever they would see, like go to visit Krishna and see one of his wives, they could always say, I remember your wedding was very beautiful. It's not comprehensible. So therefore, when Lord Chaitanya advents, he also brings Mati Radharani's mood in the form of Gadadhara Pandit. It's very, very special. Well, I'm sorry I got that other quote wrong, but are there any questions or anything anyone would like to add to Gadadhara Pandit? Radha Krishna Prabhu, you must know a few things off the top of your head. Hey, where'd our mic runner go?
I was remembering when I believe Mukunda took him to see Pundarik Vidyanidhi. That's explained by Krishna Das Kaviraj, where when he first sees Pundarik Vidyanidhi, he's very opulent. He lives in a very opulent, he's got so many servants, all luxuries, big sofa, he's lying down. And so he was thinking this guy is a sense gratifier. And then Mukunda realized what was happening, so then he chants the shlokas from the 10th canto describing Krishna. Immediately Pundarik Vidyanidhi goes into an ecstatic display. And so when Gadadhara Pandit sees that, in his heart he has great regret, and he makes a vow that he'll take initiation from Pundarik Vidyanidhi. So he serves him and eventually gets initiated.
Yeah, actually, Mukunda Datta tells a slightly more elaborate version of that, where he actually had to go twice. That's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, because the first time he walked out, and the reason he walked out, he literally is laying down on a couch, and people are feeding him. His servants are simply feeding him, and he's going, I'm so fortunate. I am so fortunate. And he's eating, and Gadadhara just said, I can't deal with this. Walked out. And when he went back to Lord Chaitanya, he said, I'm confused. Why did you send me to him? He said, take Mukunda and go back. So he takes Mukunda, and it's funny that this is Mukunda Datta, and Mukunda Datta also relating the pastime. So, and he does it with such conviction and expression. You think, I'm there again. So he actually went back, and as Mukunda began chanting this verse describing Krishna's love for just Krishna and of himself, Pundarik Vidyanidhi glanced at the peacock fan that they were fanning him with, and he just fell off the sofa, unconscious, in ecstasy. And then Gadadhara realized, yes, this personality is worthy of taking shelter of. So yeah, very elaborate. So yeah. And there aren't a lot of different details, but you should know that he is a representative of Radharani, and as much as we make other festivals in our year, we should also try to make nice festivals for these great personalities that take breath. My humble opinion, not Shastra, but my humble opinion is we need to know our history. What does it mean to be a Gaudiya Vaishnava? Therefore, we should research and study the Chaitanya Charitamrita very diligently. With that goal in mind is understanding the foundation of our sampradaya. Because just like in the discussion of Bhaktivinod Thakur, in only 350 years, so many degraded groups claiming to be followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were prevalent all over, and it was so hard for anybody to understand the truth of Lord Chaitanya's teachings because of that. Of course, we know Lord Chaitanya left us the Shishastakam, which is our entire philosophy in 8 verses. And some of the verses, like the last verse, was actually written in the play of Rupa Goswami, Vidagdva Madhava. And it is taken directly out of the instructions that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave to Rupa Goswami in Prayag. And Sri Shabha Padamadanstanastamam Adarashanam Mamam Hanam Karotuva Yatatada Vitalantalumpado Matpranasnatasus Eva Na Paraha. This is Radharani's mood. That whether Krishna embraces her, makes her miserable, leaves her abandoned, goes somewhere else besides where she is, she's still Krishna's devotee, and he can do no wrong. And I can simply accept anything he gives me as mercy. So Gadadhara Pandit's mood of service and etc. was like that. You could not get him away from his service to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You could not remove him from that. So any other questions or additions? Hey, wait for the microphone, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So, Gadadhara Pandit is one of the associates of the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right?
Yes, yes.
And Panchatattva.
He's part of the Panchatattva.
And he's from of Radharani, right? He's a Radharani's incarnation.
He's the energy of Krishna, and specifically the Ladini Shakti energy, which is the association part, the love of Krishna. You can look up Ladini Shakti and they will give you other explanations of that and how deep that love. Therefore, he came not so much as an incarnation of Radharani, but as the energy that Radharani possesses in the form of Mahabhava in serving Krishna. But he's an incarnation of the Ladini Shakti, which is Radharani's sole purpose of existence, serving Krishna.
Okay, and another thing I like to know, when Krishna married and came with 16,100 queens, all the chariot, all the queens has a different chariot when they came to Dwarka.
No, he took all the elephants. Bonasur had many. He had 8 war elephants. So he took them in the 8 elephants on top of the elephants with him when he went back to Dwarka.
Oh.
So Bonasur was a very big, powerful demon. He had all the facilities in his place for carting off the 16,100 queens back to Dwarka, but of course only Krishna could do that. It's not something ordinary, like, well, he just happened to have enough, huge elephants. Krishna arranges these things. Krishna can expand
anything
and contract any particular thing because everything is Krishna. So therefore he manipulates the material energy any way he wishes. In the same way that he can make all the planets in the solar system float in orbit in such a way that you can set your watch by the movements of the planets. And actually before they had clocks, it was known as universal time. You took time by the universe, how the planets were moving. That's how you kept track of time. It was called UT. So that was before clocks were invented. People they were not as specific, but their day went by the sun and the moons, and even the moons of Jupiter would play into how they calculated the exact hour of any given day. So there's much science to back up what the Bhagavatam says.
So when all the queen came to Dwarka, they have already separate palace built before they came.
It doesn't specifically say that, but it does specifically say they each had a palace. So when Krishna manifested that, I mean, can you imagine? I mean, and there's actually another quote, I forget where it is, where it describes how many teachers were involved in teaching Krishna's children. And it's a city in and of itself. The amount of educators that individually would go to the palaces and teach Krishna's. He had 10 sons and 1 daughter and 16,108 wives. So 10 times 16,108 plus 1 more, 11 times 6. That's how many children Krishna had. Because, and again, in the olden days, having lots of children was expected. Having many sons was wished for. In the marriage ceremony, when you do the Saptaparikraman, the 7 steps, one of those boons that is given out is that may you have 10 sons, like Krishna. And that's in those days that was a blessing. And these days it would be like a curse. Yes, may you have 10 sons. What? Yeah? You can't even tell people to have 2 sons or 1 son or 1 daughter or anything, right? Everything's changed. It's become more and more degraded. Therefore, it's more and more important that we learn our philosophy and our history. So, all right then, we're at 8:30. Thank you very much. Sorry I didn't get to the Bhagavatam. Radha Krishna, you're on for tomorrow. So actually it probably won't come up till Sunday, right? Because tomorrow is also a big festival day. The Gunjina Marjanan. Does everybody have the calendar on their phone? The Vaishnava calendar? Yeah, you need to pay attention to these things and look up each day that comes up, look up those personalities. Find something about them. And in order to do that, you should buy some sets of books. Chaitanya Charitamrita. I think the Bhaktas still have them for $108. And also the Srimad Bhagavatam. We're heading towards Bhadra Pranima. There's some very good discounted prices for a set of Bhagavatams. All right. Gantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Shri Gadadhara Pandit ki jai. Shri Shri Bhaktivinod Thakur ki jai. Go Premanande.
Hare Krishna, quick announcement. The person sitting next to me, his name is Edward. He's new, so please welcome him and show him some love. And he goes by Wicked Rain. Is that correct? Wicked Rain. He's a musician. He's very talented. So please engage him in God's service. Show some, welcome him. Show some love to him. Make him feel at home. Haribol.